Okay, you're the host again now, Steph,
Okay.
since it won't let us co-host.
Hi, Monica.
Hello.
Just so you know, we're live on YouTube. Huge, massive crowds are watching you.
I'm sure it'll go viral.
We're at the museum here, so Kathy's joining me.
Oops, that's YouTube. Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna see if I can try and get a different computer here. Let's see.
Okay, everyone, shall we make a start? Let's look at the agenda. How do I do that and look at you guys? I don't think I can.
Steph,
Yeah,
could you
once-
share the agenda,
Mm-hmm.
please?
Mm-hmm. You know what there Jennifer is, so we'll let Jen.
Does anybody have any additions to the agenda? I have one addition or changes.
I was wondering if we could discuss the new business before business arising.
My computer's
It's time
driving me
sensitive and I just want to make sure we get through it.
Sure. You mean the heritage application, the variance application prior to the consultation stuff?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
And I didn't see on the agenda the addition of the note to Metro or the note to the recommendation to council with respect to Metro.
It's not there.
So
Steph, do you have that?
I'm just looking.
I can read it out.
That came from council?
It's
No, it came from me.
It's in the thread, which is Heritage Commission agenda.
Okay.
And it's Maureen's comment, Maureen's email just before you ask who is leading Heritage Week.
I just resent it to you, Steph.
You. Sorry.
No worries.
Okay. Sorry. So that'll be a new item, 6.2 or 6.4, I guess, if we're switching new and old. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, noted.
I
Okay,
just want to add, I have to leave at 2 sharp.
Okay,
So,
we better get moving then.
yeah,
Mhm.
short
Um,
leash.
So we need to read that out to everybody to add it to the agenda. Steph, perhaps you could do that. That might be.
Do we, or can we just say we're going to discuss the orchard project and we'll read the.
And paste it in the chat at least, if you have the text written.
That's a good idea.
There you go.
So I'm proposing that we add that. I think you said 6.4. Steph?
Yes. Okay, so that's 3 amendments to the agenda.
Motion to approve?
Could somebody make a motion to approve? Thanks, Peter. And a seconder?
I'll second.
Thanks, Rondi. And in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No objections. And Peter's put his hand up. Thank you, Peter. Williamson. Okay. Minutes then, I believe, is the next item.
Move adoption of the minutes.
Thank you,
Second.
Judy. Thanks. In favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Peter. Next, public comments. I think that's you, Kathy, if you have anything to add. And if not, we'll move on to a review of the action items.
Have action items.
Thanks, Steph. I hear you scrolling fast there.
Mhm. So that's Jen.
So Steph, have you made any headway on making that list?
I think the list, sorry, it's not on the agenda either. The list and had one thing on it and is, oh my God, this was so long ago.
I know.
Can you guys move on and I'll poke around while you're.
Well, we have the Excel spreadsheet of sites, but I think that was separate from the sites to be commemorated, right?
Yeah,
There's
we
just
had
the
two
informal
lists.
inventory. Okay,
Yeah.
that we have.
So then the list of sites to be commemorated, I assume it would be the King Edward Bay site, right?
And this new Miller's Landing.
Could I just comment? Everything that's listed here, with the exception of the first item, all relates to Heritage Week, and
Okay,
it all happened.
yeah,
So I think we can move on to page 2 of this. And
either happened or it didn't happen, aside from that one item.
Okay, I'll follow up on my item in a more concentrated way.
Yeah.
After this meeting and follow up with you.
Then I have not been to the Maritime Museum. And Judy, there's one item for you. Look for copies of documents
Yeah.
regarding the early
Still waiting
2000s.
to hear from Kathy. Is my audio on?
Yes.
Yes.
yeah,
I can't get the audio to work, so I'm going to chat.
But
it's
you're-
working.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
I know. Okay.
We can hear you.
I
Can't hear us.
Okay.
okay. So no, just no update. Carry on. Oh.
Okay, so Judy, is that the end of your response to that?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So then next we're moving to what on here is 6.1, right? New business.
Yes.
And so can I turn that over to you, Jennifer?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this new item is a heritage alteration permit that has been introduced to council and has now been redirected to the commission for comment. This heritage alteration permit would be the first of its kind in Bowen Island municipality. And so to draft this, I have spoken with Delta, who provided templates for how they do heritage alteration permits, and also with our legal counsel to make sure that it's set up in a good way. And also Donald Luxton, he commented on it as well. And so introducing to council was the introductory report, which I'm trying to find here. We have attachments on attachments, but yeah, so here's the council referring the heritage alteration permit to the commission for comment. Yeah. sorry, I'm not as familiar with the way that it's set up as attachments here, but this is the heritage alteration permit itself. And the way it's set up is there is a heritage covenant that gets registered to the title that then references this heritage alteration permit. So there's those two documents that go hand in hand. And this heritage alteration permit is intended to protect a structure that is on private land. It was suggested by me when they applied for a variance to the owner, and it should just ask them if it was something they were interested in. And they said that they definitely were interested. And after I drafted this permit, they reviewed the permit and have said that they're happy with it the way that it is. So with a heritage alteration permit on private land, it's always entered voluntarily by the owner. But so this permit would protect a heritage structure or potential heritage structure on the site and would also vary the lot coverage. So originally the applicant had come to the Muni with a request to vary the lot coverage. And so that was what kind of triggered this whole review. So that variance is still there. It's just now part of the heritage alteration permit instead of a development variance permit, which is what they had originally applied for. So to get into the details of what it is, here's the site. Let's see if I've got the presentation that I gave to council in here. Yeah, okay, this is better. So here's a bit on heritage application permits that I presented to council so that they would understand what was happening. And here's the location. So it's in the Miller Landing neighborhood on this shoreline area. It's a very large lot here. And it's important to note that along, you can see my mouse moving, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Along the kind of southern border of this lot is a public beach access pathway that leads to a small beach here. And the heritage structure in question is located just here. So it is visible from the public path, even though it's on private land.
This is the gated property at the cul-de-sac at
That's
the very
correct.
end of Miller Road.
Yes.
And how did we even know that there was a heritage tea house on the site? Was it did staff inspect the property?
So when I did my site visit, as is standard for a development variance permit application, I noticed it when I was there and spoke with the architect about it. And he said, oh yes, it's this old heritage. They call it a tea house. And it's been there for forever. So that was kind of what started it. And then, yeah, so there hasn't been any kind of official, is this a heritage building investigation?
And so we don't know anything more about it in order to, if we're going to approve the variance based on the heritage structure, the commission doesn't have any more information other than it's a heritage. It's been there for a long time.
I'm going to show you some photos, but yeah.
Okay. Well done, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Well, it was just in the process of looking at this variance and going, what do I do with this variance? And then going, hey, there's a heritage structure. Maybe we could covenant the heritage structure and protect it. So
Right.
yeah, it was just a process of trying to be creative about what to do with the variance. So here's the site plan, and you can see there's the heritage structure on the lower right here, which I'll show you pictures. And then what they were asking for as part of their variance application was a small addition to a large primary residence, which is that one in the top there, and then some roof extensions to a secondary accessory building that has bedrooms in it, which they're already well over their permitted lot coverage because they had a existing non-conforming condition. So even these tiny little additions, which look like nothing, push them even further beyond their maximum lot coverage. So part of the connection between protecting this heritage building and allowing for this additional lot coverage is that in theory, they could demolish this, this older building and then use that lot coverage elsewhere on the site. So that was not part of their proposal, but that's the connection between the two things. Okay, so yeah, here's the additions. This you're probably not as interested in. There's the roof extension, which is already under construction. Okay, here's the heritage building, and I have more photos if you'd like to see them. So the photo on the left is the view from the public way, and you can see the fence there demarcating their boundary for their lot line. And then there's the building, and there's a deck that goes around it, which I'm not sure how old that is, but in the permit, what it's calling for is that the building and the surrounding deck and the flagpole looking thing that's to the right of it are all considered part of the heritage structure. And the owner has the option of either maintaining them as they are right now, or doing a historic investigation and restoring it to some historic condition. But they're not permitted to just make changes or to allow it to go into disrepair. So yeah, so this is the council presentation. Let me get some more photos.
Those are amazing mushrooms.
Yeah.
That's one of those micro photos. They're very, very, very tiny.
While we're waiting, I had another thought, which is if this structure is going to be covenanted and protected, should it also not be on our heritage register? And what would be the appropriate timing and process to add it to the register? Because otherwise, it would. Yep.
Moonwings, is that not it?
Pardon me, I just wanted to highlight that Kathy's looking up in the archival database images of this
who you're looking at?
structure, and she's wondering if it's moonwings. Is that what you
Is
said?
that Moonwings?
I don't know what Moonwings is.
It's down there.
Yeah, on Millers Road. I think that's called Moonwings. I'll bet I've got information here.
The property called Moonwinks is on the right as you go down that road, I think.
Oh, look, Kathy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what.
So this is the view from the public walkway. So I'm standing in the public walkway and looking at the building.
It looks like the photos in the
kind of
archive.
And they called the gazebo Moonwinks for whatever reason. Miller family? I'm not sure about that, but I can look and see if we've got information about Moonwinks.
Who's the donor?
Awesome.
Nordheimer.
Gerald Nordheimer is the donor of that photo. That's not any relation to the family that's currently there, maybe. No. No.
So the other part of the permit that is required is that the owner do research on the building and then design and manufacture a sign that would go along this walkway and would explain the heritage value of the structure. And then the municipality is responsible for installing that sign.
Why is he responsible for doing it if it's our sign?
Mm-hmm.
It's just part of the permit and they were very happy to do it.
Okay, so we've got, it was from Isaac Miller, who had a summer cottage there and called it Moonwinks.
Do you want to say that out loud to them? Or
I don't know if it matters at this point, but we do have information.
just to highlight, Kathy's looking at the Irene Howard book.
Yeah, it's an Isaac Miller was their property, and he had a summer cottage there, and he called it Moonwinks. And it says, and on a rock overlooking the water, an open summer pavilion where you could sit and watch whatever. But yeah, that's what we've always referred to as Moonwinks. So it is part of the original Isaac Miller property.
There's also a feature page on your Museum and Archives website, just under Miller's Landing, and it starts off with a picture of the Moonwinks gazebo.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. So we actually do have some historical information already on this.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll
So
send you
those,
mine, Jennifer.
great. So those photos were from the public walkway and now these are on the private site. I can get closer. So this is the walkway that's on the private land and is not considered part of the structure. The structure starts at that deck line there. View from it.
How is it currently used? Is it currently used? Oh,
At this exact moment, the guy who's doing the construction of the nearby building is using it as a little office for his construction work, but the owners do on occasion, you know, use it for little things, but they obviously they don't primarily use it, as you can see.
when this was presented at council, there was a lot of interest. And I think it's fair to say a lot of support for moving forward with this.
So you can see how much of it appears to be part of the original heritage. I mean, the whole interior, I'm not seeing anything obvious that has been recently changed.
Yeah. Just the deck and railing maybe, because the railing.
Yeah, the deck and railing looks newer. Yeah.
And I wonder if the electrical, if it was originally made with an electrical light that's hanging from the ceiling, or if the roof is original. Would it mean that this would be public accessible in some way?
No, it's not. It's only publicly viewable. So the owner is responsible for providing the sign, for maintaining the building, and for also maintaining the view from the public area towards the building. So this photograph is specifically showing this grove of bamboo, which they will need to keep trimmed down such that the structure is viewable. They're not responsible for if the muni allows some of the vegetation to overgrow and makes it not visible, but they are responsible for vegetation on their own site, that they don't conceal the building.
And how does it, if the muni did have land that kind of rose up and blocked the view, is there a process for them to ask the muni to do some landscaping?
There's not anything like that written into the permit, but that's something that we would have to work out separately. So the permit doesn't really involve any obligation on the muni's part other than that we would review and approve the sign that they create and then that we install it.
Right, I'm just wondering, because if they did let the bamboo grow up, would it matter if the muni was letting something else grow up? Not that it matters, it looks like everything's.
Oh, no, it's not written like that. They just have to maintain the view from the lot line.
Okay.
It doesn't say as long as the muni does it.
Oh, and from the
Just
lot
only
line.
From the lot line, so that they don't have to trim our vegetation.
And does it have to be marked where the lot line is so that people don't think that they can get a closer look if they see the sign posted and think, oh, I want to go up and just take a look around?
Well, currently there's this fence, so there's no way to get there.
Okay, got it.
But I mean, we could also consider something on the signage that says it's on private land and not accessible. And this sign is just for information, something like that.
I don't think.
Oh,
that
here's the light
serves us.
fixture. So I don't know.
I'm not sure those details about accessibility, I don't think those concern us right now, do they? We just need to consider the application and whether it's worth it and whether it will work. I think.
Yeah,
that's
I just, whenever I come across something, I always like to see if I can get a closer look. Just a natural inclination.
It's very, very hard to get to.
Yeah.
I mean, their land is pretty secure. They have fencing all the way around.
Well, and it's on a cliff.
I think what's really exciting about this for me is it's our first potential heritage alteration permit.
Yes.
And
what's wonderful about that is the fact that it's publicly viewable, as opposed to a heritage site that's down a long driveway and not accessible except on special tours or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually like the fact that it's on private land, because all of our discussion up until now has focused on public sites. And we felt fairly comfortable in putting those properties on the draft heritage registry. Whereas here we have a private landowner putting forward something and seeing benefit to himself and to the community, and having, heritage essentially standing for part of his property.
So my question is, should, even though the phase 1 register is so far just public sites. Would we want to add Moonwinks to the draft phase 1 register as an example of a private site that could be on a register, or do we wait till phase 2?
I think that I would say to that, I mean, I think I don't see why it shouldn't be added in phase 1. And I do think that it's really helpful that there's a private owner who is doing this. It really supports our efforts. However, in order to put it on the register, we would have to do that research. And right now, I kind of like to send the register to council to get them to adopt it. And I don't really want to put another job in the way of that. That would be my thought about that.
And I'm trying to remember exactly, but I think there's a public notice requirement to go on the register that takes some time. I'd have to look it up to be sure.
I don't think so. I think you only have to notify people, if I remember rightly, you only have to notify people after you put it on, just for the register, because it doesn't have any, protection, offer any protections or.
Okay, I can look it up in the plan. I know it was there.
But we would have to do that historical research and look at the heritage characteristics and all of that, so that, you know, given the current circumstances and everybody's schedules, it just seems to me that that would add a delay of 3 months before we could send our register to council for adoption. I'd be happy to start moving forward with that project. You know, maybe it would catch up with the council process, but personally, I think it's taken us, you know, we've been on a long journey to get the register adopted, and I'm kind of keen to just let it go through. And then once that happens, presumably the owner would be happy for it to be added. And to add things to the register is a very simple process. I think it's just done by motion, whereas to adopt the register is a bylaw, I think.
Yeah, and Melissa, I'm not wedded to having this on the phase 1. I just thought I'd raise the issue of adding it to the register at some point. And also, it would seem to be you know, the covenant is sticks versus carrots. But if I wouldn't see the owners having an objection to having it eventually on the register, because there's carrots involved in being on the register, and so if they needed a future variance of some kind, being on the register could allow them to do that, whereas the covenant is simply or a grant, to restore Moonwinks. One thing I would suggest, though, that if the commission votes to approve the variance and the covenant, I guess, that in the wording of the motion we actually add, you know, not just the address, but that we also, you know, approve the variance for Moonwinks gazebo, which we believe has been on the site at least since 1908, which is just on the museum website there. So there's something there that personalizes it rather than just being an address.
Mm-hmm.
Give it a name and a date.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So should that be included somewhere in the alteration permit wording? Should there be something in there mentioning that it should be included on the register, Jennifer?
Well, it wouldn't really go there because the permit doesn't cover things like that.
Right.
But council could say, and we'd furthermore like to consider it as part of the register when that comes through or something like that, but it wouldn't be on the permit. That'd be
okay. So I have a couple of questions. One, you mentioned that the site is already over the lot coverage allocation, so I had a little bit of curiosity about how much and
It's over by a lot. Let me see. Just because when they built it, the limitation was, well, not when they built it, when they applied for the permit to build the house, which is quite large, that limitation was not there.
So it's an
So-
existing non-conforming.
That's right.
So would this, I'm just trying to understand the whole thing. Would this acceptance of the additions that they've proposed in this application, would that then mean that the existing non-conforming would then be compliant, or is it only related to the new additions?
Yeah, so if it would allow for those new additions to be built as they are proposed, but if they wanted to do something else, it wouldn't necessarily give them any leverage there. And then typically the way that the lot coverage stuff goes is once you have the lot coverage, you can kind of move it around. So if they wanted to demolish a building and then build another building of the same size, the fact that they're over lot coverage would not stop that. It would have to be, there'd have to be some other issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to ask about like what I've heard from other municipalities and people working with heritage is that the challenge is in making sure that people do what they say they're going to do, what's expected. You know, often people run out of money or enthusiasm. So I was wondering about monitoring, enforcement, and penalties. Like what happens if they do knock down the, which I'm not suggesting that they will or that they might, because they've kept it until now anyway, but I'm just wondering what happens if they do knock down this building. What, you know, do they then have to knock down the new kitchen, or how does that, how is that enforced? They're going to covenant it, and I couldn't figure out from my reading of the documents you included what exactly would be in the covenant. But if they did things that weren't, if they broke the covenant, what happens?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I'm not sure what the answer would be other than the same thing that would happen when you break any covenant. But I'm sorry, I don't know what exactly the options are.
Right.
But it is a legally binding agreement.
I'm assuming the covenant also includes a duty to maintain it properly, because
Yes.
we all hear demolition by neglect.
Yeah, the permit includes that. The covenant simply references the permit. Yeah, and Judy's also clarifying here, the covenant is registered on the title. So it goes with the land and all of the things that would normally happen with the covenant.
Yes, I understand that. I'm just wondering what it means, how it's enforceable, and what kind of control, you know, what power it actually has in the end. So that would be my question on that, in terms of maintenance and demolition, basically.
I guess this is as good as it ever gets in heritage. It's like a heritage designation, a legal designation that it gives you legal protection. You can see people can still tear things down and alter them, but there's legal consequences. At least with this one, it's publicly viewable, so it's easy to see if it looks like it's neglected, or someone looks like someone has put a excavator next to it, getting you ready to tear it down, that kind of thing.
I think often, if I remember rightly, often when these kinds of heritage applications go through, a lot of municipalities include designation as part of that, which then does have some established enforceability and established penalties and so on.
I think we're over.
Was there a reason we're just looking at a covenant and not an actual designation in return for the variance?
The municipality is prepared, municipal council is prepared to entertain a covenant they're not prepared to set the precedent of designation.
It's probably a good strategy, actually, at this point, since we don't even have a register yet.
Judy's commenting the following: local government could stop demolition, and regarding the previous conversation, and then designation needs the register.
Yeah. So Jennifer, what do you need from us as a Heritage Commission?
Well, so I don't need anything specific, but it would be good to be supportive of the applicants when they go to make the sign. But council just needs your comments on this permit, and that could be, you know, comments of support or comments of, you know, just general things that you want to say about it.
So
And this is going to be seen be considered by council at the upcoming meeting, the one on the 25th, I believe it is.
So to summarize what I've heard from everybody, then I think that in general, the commission is excited to see the application. They're happy that the building is going to be, that the building's being conserved and that it's going to be put on the covenant, that it's going to, that we like the duty to maintain. We like the that it will be viewable from the public, but there are some concerns about enforceability and yes, there's some concerns about enforcement in the long term.
And there's no other downside, is there, other than they're going to be over their lot coverage? So it's a technical issue.
It's not something that concerns us as a Heritage Commission.
Mm-hmm.
What did Don Luxton say, by the way, Jennifer?
Nothing at length. I just asked him to look at it and let me know if he saw any red flags or if it was as these things are typically written. I mean, he just basically did it as a favor, so it was really quick. I think he like emailed me back and just said no concerns. That was it.
Yeah. I guess the other thing that we said is that we would like to put it on the register.
So would you like I've just got a sort of generic resolution that the Heritage Commission recommends that the permit be approved and that the covenant be applied. And then the notes that you've mentioned, Michelle, which echo my own, be in the body of the minutes. Are people comfortable with that?
Except that I suggested, I don't know if the rest of the commission agrees, that we personalize it a bit by saying that the
Yeah, so I have
covenant is a hoodwink or moonwink.
So I have the heritage permit number, comma 1314 Miller Road, brackets, Moonwinks gazebo, built in 1908. Is that okay?
We don't know if it was built in 1908, but it was built, it's at least as old as 1908.
Built before 1908?
Probably.
Circa.
Yeah.
Steph, I also put notes in the group chat as Melissa was summarizing with just
Yeah,
her
I've got
points
those.
there so that people could see them. Okay.
But do you want those all in the resolution, or can we just do a simple resolution, have the notes in the minutes? Or how would you like?
Well, so council, I believe, has requested.
Okay.
comments.
And so I'll say, and provide the following comments then. Okay, sorry. And I'll do that.
So it would be good to have a general statement of support or not support, and then the comments.
with these
below
comments,
that,
okay.
Yeah, and the comments could include, you know, the name and those other facts. And I'm actually putting together my report this afternoon. I was just waiting for this meeting to go to council for that consideration. So if we have those comments put together by then, I can put them in the report and just get it done. Judy's
Okay,
asking,
so
can we
I have-
get them to do the research? So by them, do you mean the applicant?
Yep.
So that is how it's written now, is that they're responsible for that. But my hope would be that the museum and archives and everything would make available information that they have.
Yeah, it's on the counter of the bar.
Also, I just wanted to respond, Judy, to your question about whether they are, whether the issue is that they demolish this and get their extra space or not. I think if they demolished it, they wouldn't necessarily get any extra space because they're already over their limit.
No, they could. So the lot coverage that the structure is currently occupying, if they were to, in theory, if they were to demolish it, they would then have available that much lot coverage that they could put somewhere without needing a variance at all.
Even though they're already over their lot
Yeah,
coverage?
that's the way it works.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to move the recommendation.
A second.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, Randy. Aye. Or all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we have a hand raised from Peter Williamson.
Great. Well, this is exciting. Yay.
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 Okay. Is everybody caught up on that? I can't. You all done, Steph?
I'm right. Yeah.
You're muted, darling.
Got a 15-year-old looking for his math. The recommendations, what you said. I will send it out again though by email. I'm ready to move on.
Okay, great.
Steph, can you just put that recommendation in the chat so that way I have it already for my report?
Sure.
Thanks.
Oh, now you're gonna make me edit the grammar. Okay, give me a sec.
Just because if there's comments, I won't have time to respond to them before it goes to the report.
Okay, Maureen, I heard you say that you need to leave at 2. I'm wondering if we should quickly deal with the Metro thing before we review the.
Sure. So let me just find the wording here that was put in the chat.
I'm gonna do that, Jennifer.
Maureen?
Here it comes. So I'll put it in again for the Metro. That the Heritage Commission recommend to council follow up with Metro Parks regarding the Davies Orchard revitalization project, including steps to winterize or otherwise protect the remaining cottages prior to the full project launch.
Okay, so shall I speak to the background on this, Melissa?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay, so as some of you know, the Davies Orchard project has been pushed forward in terms of the project schedule and the budget for Metro. Metro's also doing a major review of all of its budgets for all projects, just given the impacts of COVID-19. So in the meantime, we have a number of cottages down there that need some sort of winterization or some sort of protection. Otherwise, we're going to get, as Peter said before, in another context, we're going to get demolition by neglect. I don't personally think that the Heritage Commission needs to spend a lot of time on this recommendation. I think if it's basically an okay recommendation that we support as a group, that we should vote on it, see where it falls, boot it up to council, and let council deal with the negotiation with Metro Parks to see what can be done in the short run for winterizing. I don't think there's any chance that the full project launch will be pulled back to its original timeline. Too many other things have gone on in the interim. Council has also, not council, I'm not speaking correctly here. Myself, Jeff Fitzpatrick, Dennis Back, the acting CEO, and Patrick Graham, the new director of engineering. We've all had conversations with Metro staff around this issue and a couple of other Metro points. They were supposed to be coming over, and they being the director of parks and Jeff and possibly another person from parks. They were supposed to be coming over here, and then we got essentially shut down. So there was some action, but it got stopped, and I think that we need to formally request that it get moving again.
I'm willing to so move.
I'm willing to second.
Okay, so do we discuss now or vote now?
Discuss.
Anybody have anything to add? Seems like everybody's doesn't have anything to add. So then I'll ask for people to vote. Who is happy to approve this recommendation to council?
Aye.
Yep. Yes. Andy.
Unanimous. Thank you, everybody.
Anonymous.
Okay, let's move on to, let's see how far we can get through the heritage consultation work, and Maureen will have to duck out when she when it reaches 2 o'clock. And Jennifer, perhaps, okay, Peter. Jennifer, perhaps if you could lead that.
Okay.
I did put that previous.
Do we have the other thing? Yeah.
What are we having?
In the chat is the recommendation regarding the HAP. It kind of merges with the previous, but
Right.
it is there. So if you can just make sure that it says what you'd like to say in the report, then I will be able to immediately apply that.
The navigating the chat thing is, I find it so hard. It zooms up and down.
You can always copy the text and paste it into something that's easier to read.
Mm.
Want to move on, Jennifer?
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so I've actually sort of combined the Citizenlab engagement with the Heritage Week review into one document. So I'm just going to suggest that as one piece at once. Oops, why is that? Okay, so for the Heritage Week review, I just listed here the different things that we did for Heritage Week and what was kind of the outcomes of that. So just so that we would have it in one place and we don't have to try to remember. So we had the Legion lunch with the pinup posters. Bowen Island Museum and Archives was there, and we also ended up volunteering for the Legion lunch service, which was also a nice community building thing. And people had some comments on those pinups. We had the Heritage Walk. Do you all remember exactly how many attendees there were? I thought it was 3.
For the Heritage Walk,
Mm-hmm.
it seemed like more, but maybe that included us.
Like not counting the members.
Peter, do you remember?
I thought there were about 5 people that came into the cottage.
That sounds about right.
5
Yeah.
plus 2 guides.
Yep.
Then
Was
the Heritage, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, 5 or 6. It wasn't a huge group.
Okay.
It was the number of people that showed up for the tour. The overall
And then
one.
the Heritage Week launch event, which took place just after the walk, was not so well attended. We had one attendee who was not presenting, and we had the Bowen Fables representatives there giving their presentation in their Shadow Puppet Stories trailer. We had the Heritage Throwback on social media as posts by Sophie with images provided by the Museum and Archives. For the online engagement, we had, I don't know how many people saw the site or engaged with it passively, but active participants, we had 3. And then here I have summarized their comments from the Excel spreadsheet. So in terms of sites that were recommended, we had someone recommended the ruins of the Western Explosives Company. And then someone else recommended generally heritage farmland and farms, and then listed a bunch of potential locations like the Collins Family Farmhouse, Rosebank, Inswell Farm, Xenia, McGee Farm, and the old horse arena. And then also said that they were in favor of incentives for people to maintain and look after heritage homes on private homes with an example. And then there were some comments. So those were all original posts where people had suggested certain places. And then we had 3 comments about getting a plaque at the Crippen Park Meadow Ruins.
And some cows.
Yes, and cows. And then, you know, support for the heritage schools, and then statement about natural heritage. We have a dog.
A visitor,
And then
probably.
the flyers were sent out to the entire community of people that accept flyers on the island. So that was over 1,000. And then I just put the copy of the flyer here. So that's just a quick summary. Did I miss anything?
No.
Did we get any input outside of the site?
Like
in-
via email or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Or
It's
letters.
possible. I'm actually having a bug right now, which is one reason why this report is so shoddy, that I can't search my email, and I store a lot of stuff in there. So there's no way for me to find things unless I just scroll through all of my emails. So I can't actually answer that question right now, but it's possible.
So what was, sorry, what was your question, Peter?
Oh, whether there was any input from outside of the outside of the site, either by
Right.
email or letter or whatever, response to the pamphlets. maybe.
Definitely not like any physical mail. I would remember that.
Okay.
There may have been some emails, but the main comments that came from the public besides the online engagement was wanting to see the Little Red Church on the
Added.
register added. Mhm. There were a couple of people that said that. I'm remembering that from the Legion lunch.
There was
Yeah.
also quite a lot of engagement on Facebook.
Facebook, yeah.
That's not noted here. Sort of some
Well,
of
it would be part
the-
of the social media posts. But whereas Sophie does do posts, I'm not sure that she's responsible for tracking comments. Just
Responsive.
generally.
No, I don't think she is, but a lot of the posts that she made really sparked engagement on the part of the viewers, and there were quite a few stories that were being exchanged online. and
Yeah.
were very sweet.
Yes. Yes, I'm not sure how we capture that. I was just thinking about that, but there was quite a bit of not exactly excitement, but I don't know. Yeah, like you say, it was very sweet, and people were engaged and yeah, kind of excited to be thinking about those stories of Bowen. Whether they were people who were living here then, or whether they were new to the island, relatively new to the island, people were quite excited to hear those stories. So I think it does show that the heritage is meaningful to Bowen Islanders, and the stories are meaningful.
I have to run, but there was one other thing, which was I think I'd emailed Jennifer with a list of sites that had been brought up by the 5 or 6 participants that were on the tour, because we engaged people during it. And I think I might have actually also kind of reported it during the session at the Commons that followed the tour. So I don't know whether maybe it's somewhere in your emails, Jennifer, but I made a
It
point.
probably is.
So that needs to be added into the data that you have from the site as well.
Okay.
I wonder,
As
Peter,
soon
if
as
you
I have
can
the ability
find
to
that.
search.
I could probably find that email. So
And
in
then
my
If you're
archives.
able to send it to me again, then it's in the
Yeah,
top of my
that's what I
email,
was
then I can
thinking.
paste it in here.
Sure,
I
great.
didn't anticipate not being able to access information in my email, so.
Right. Okay, I got to run. Nice to see everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you. And I
Bye,
think
Peter.
when Peter and I leave, we no longer have quorum.
Yes. So maybe we just have to end the meeting, or we could just carry on with the reporting.
I've got a,
Well, so we
I also
won't be
have
able to
to-
continue with the heritage plan next steps.
I just
No.
want to know
Form.
at least
Well-
also leaving at 2:00.
We can schedule another one of these Zoom
Yeah,
meetings, I
why
guess.
don't we,
Yeah.
why don't we do that? We'll schedule another
Okay.
meeting.
Okay, bye.
Okay, well then, I think I'll, bye to those who have to leave immediately, and then I'll adjourn this meeting and we'll schedule another. So thank you for everybody for coming to the meeting. And I'll look forward to speaking to you soon. I'll stay on in case Steph or Jennifer needs to.
I'd
ask.
like to talk.
Yeah.
Touch base
Yeah.
after.
Okay, bye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Ronnie.
you.
Bye,
Bye.
Peter. Bye. Bye, Monica.
Can you unshare your screen, Jen? There we go.
Randy.
So yeah, you talked about getting the registry to council. I don't have that in any of my actions.
No, I think it would be the next decision that we made, which would be the next steps following the heritage consultation. That would be the resolution that we would make, would be to send the report to council and to recommend that they adopt the register. So we can't do that today.
Right.
But I think we should probably discuss the register contents in light of public feedback and decide on whether the register as is written now is what you want to send to council.
Well,
or
that's a
if
good
you want to
point.
make any adjustments.
We do need to make adjustments. I don't think we would add anything to it because we deliberately kept it all public buildings. And any of the additions that were suggested are totally obvious additions, such as the Collins farmhouse and Collins church and so on, but they're all public. Plus they would need that work of going and looking at doing the heritage, whatever it's called, characteristics and all that research. So, but I realize you've reminded me that we do need to update it because it's got buildings that have been knocked down in the heritage characteristics. So,
But perhaps some statement at the beginning about how there are many sites on private land that have value and that those would be considered in phase 2 or something like that, so that we can acknowledge the public engagement that happened so that people aren't just like, well, I suggested this thing and they ignored me.
yeah, we could put something like that in the report. We did, part of the thing was to have an inventory, so we can easily include those places on the inventory, and that would be kind of like partly it would be a kind of waiting room for stuff to go on the register. I mean, I think we do this register, this one that's basically prepared, but I realize does need editing, and then we could do a second one that would include this Bandali place and the Moonwinks and Collins Hall and church and maybe Collins Farm if they're open to that, if that family is open to it, then we can do that.
So then maybe on the agenda for next time is updating the inventory, updating the register,
And next steps for
and then
for
considering
properties. Yeah,
phase 2 of the register
yeah.
with outreach to the owners of those places to
Yes.
find out their level of interest.
Yes. Yep.
Sorry, you said update inventory, update register. What was the last one?
To prepare for the register phase 2, which would include outreach to private owners of the locations in phase 2.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I mean, maybe Steph, if we arrange another meeting quite fairly soon, like not in 3 months, like sooner than that. And then that would give the summer for doing that research, which would be good because basically it'll probably be me and Peter. So I need him to have a freer schedule and to be around more. So that's the summer. I think, now that I've lost Jack.
Yeah.
Maybe Monica would do some of the research. anyway, that's.
How much research? So are you doing like you're doing enough research for a blurb kind of thing? Or
Yeah, but it's just establishing, you know, when was it actually built, who built, you know, a lot of these things you find when you look into it, like you think you know what it is, and then you find there's 3 myths and they're all totally incompatible, and that so you just have to get to the bottom of that. And it's not that much work, but when you're talking about several different buildings, then it does, it is, you know, we'd probably each spent a working week on that thing as it is, probably, you know, me, Jack and Peter, but that's for 10 properties, 20 if you include all 10 of the cottages. So.
You guys have already decided. I just, do you, like I was just chatting, post-meeting chat. I thought that having that mood wings on the phase 1 of the register would set such an example to the community. So when you're going to outreach to private owners in phase 2, you've already got this excellent example. People are like, oh, what does it mean?
Yeah. I think we probably should start doing the work on that. I mean, maybe I'll ask Monica if she could pull the historic.
Maybe if it miraculously comes together in 2 weeks, you can slide it in.
Yeah, totally. And if Peter's willing to go and do the heritage characteristics, because that's really his thing, and it probably wouldn't take that much effort to do that. He could coordinate with Jennifer to get access.
This is all
So
so
maybe
live
I'll
on
email.
YouTube.
Yeah,